I want to talk to you about the 5 ways that you can fund and finance the purchase of your very first self-storage facility. Number 1, seller financing. And this is probably my favorite. You're able to give the seller their price and you're able to dictate the terms. And when I say terms, I'm talking about the interest rate, the down payment, and the loan term. Seller financing is basically just turning the seller into the bank. If you were to reach out to Wells Fargo or Chase, they're going to tell you what the interest rate is. They're going to tell you what the loan term is. Very little negotiation there. When it comes to seller financing, it's a completely different ballgame. I think about my 24,000 square foot storage facility in Amelia Island. We bought that on 90% seller financing. And guess what? We negotiated no payments for 12 months. Try going to a bank and telling them that you don't want to make the debt service payments for an entire year. They're going to laugh you out of the office. But with seller financing, as long as you're able to structure a win-win scenario, then you're able to get terms that work for you while giving the seller the price that works for them. In this particular example, we got a 3.25% fixed interest rate over a 5-year period. We were able to get a 1-year extension on that if we elect to. Not only that, but in self-storage, it's typical to amortize these loans over 20 or 25 years. And we were able to get 35-year amortization schedule, which means that it lowers our debt service payment, maximizes our cash flow. And so seller financing and turning the seller into the bank can be an incredible way to buy your first storage facility. Now, before I move on to the second, you might be thinking, hey, Alex, why would a seller do that? Why would they seller finance? And there's a variety of reasons a seller would be interested in doing it. So much so that I have actually sold storage on seller financing. Number 1, it literally is passive income. The seller that gets a monthly ACH deposit from me is generating more money passively than they were when they were managing and operating the storage facility. That's actually the second reason, is that he no longer has to manage and operate the facility. He doesn't have to worry about the taxes. He doesn't have to worry about the insurance. He doesn't have to worry about the customers and the upkeep and the maintenance, the lawn, anything like that. He literally passively receives a monthly ACH deposit. On top of that, he was able to avoid a very, very big tax liability. This particular seller owned the facility free and clear, and had he sold that facility and gotten a bunch of cash, Uncle Sam was gonna come knocking on the door asking for a very, very big paycheck. As a result of seller financing, he was able to extend the timeline in which those taxes were due. The second way that you can finance the purchase of a self-storage facility, and that is a small local community bank. One of my favorite things, if I'm not able to get seller financing, is find the small local community banks in the area where the self-storage facility is located. And I'm talking banks that you maybe have never heard of, maybe a bank that has 1 or 2 branches. We're going to the savings and loan. We're going to the credit union. You're gonna go directly to the loan department and you're gonna start building a relationship with them. Let them know that you are under contract to buy your first storage facility and they want to invest in the area. They likely even know the storage facility. I think of somebody like Kate in our community and Mario, who found great deals that were brought to them by other Storage Wins community members, and they went to a local bank. They were able to negotiate a better interest rate, better terms, and they were able to get 70 to 75% financing to purchase their very first storage facility. The third way is small business administration. One of the things I've always shared is self-storage is a business with the benefits of real estate. And that is why the Small Business Administration has an appetite to lend on the right deals with the right operators. I think of my first storage facility that I bought back in 2021, 43,000 square foot storage facility. I was buying the facility for just under $1.6 million. There was only a little bit of an issue that I had. I didn't have $1.6 million. In fact, I didn't even have the 15% down payment money, which was about 350 grand. I was able to find somebody who had the 15% down payment plus some additional money that we had to put into the facility, and SBA gave me financing for 85% of the purchase price. What are some of the benefits of SBA? Number 1, it's less of a down payment. Typically, if you're working with a local community bank, you're going to put down 25 or 30%. With SBA, you can put as little as 10%, if not 15%. Some of the cons associated with getting small business administration financing, there's more red tape. You're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops. You really have to have your financials, your taxes, the record keeping has to be airtight. They're going to request a lot of information. You need to expect that. The fourth way is with either equity partners and or private lenders. These can really be separate. It can actually be 4 and 5, but I want to give you a bonus and I'm going to lump these two together here. I have shared that the most valuable capital that you can raise in your self-storage business is not money, it's relationship capital. The backbone of this entire business is building relationships with the right people. When you do that, these people oftentimes will be your best private money lenders and or potential equity partners. In my humble opinion, one of the most difficult things when it comes to the self-storage business is finding the right facility. It's finding the deals. Yet what I find is that most people are so worried about funding these deals. They're worried about the money. Oftentimes, these are associated with limiting beliefs. They have told themselves a story that they are the ones that need to personally have hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, to buy these deals. When in fact, I can tell you that every single storage deal I bought has been without using my own money. And I have numerous case studies of Storage Wins community members who have bought deals without having to use their own money. They leverage other people's money. And that could be like going back to number one, seller financing, which is basically turning the seller into the bank. That could be through equity partners or private lenders. What is the difference between an equity partner and a private lender? An equity partner is gonna want equity in the deal. They want ownership. A private lender just wants a fixed, steady rate of return on their money. They're gonna lend you X dollars and they want a certain interest rate on that. They wanna get paid monthly. Or in some cases, you could structure it where they get paid on the back end. Have those meaningful conversations with people, build relationships, find out what their goals are. I'm always trying to meet people where they're at. When I have conversations, I'm not chasing money. I'm not asking for people to lend me money or invest with me. I am presenting opportunities. My mindset is that I am giving somebody the opportunity to want to invest with me. I am never chasing capital. If you chase capital, capital is going to run from you. That reminds me of one of the things I've shared with my daughters. My now 11-year-old was having some challenges with some friends at school. I found that she was constantly the one chasing them, wanting to be involved in the conversation or wanting to do X or Y or Z. And I shared with her, I said, think about the analogy of a dog. I said, what happens when you chase a dog? And she kind of like stopped and paused for a second and she goes, well, the dog's gonna run away. I said, exactly. Now, what happens when you run away from the dog? And the light bulb clicked. It instantly went off in her head and she was like, the dog's gonna chase me. I said, exactly. Another analogy I think of is imagine like the first time you went on a date, if you're married or with your significant other. Imagine if like you met them, you picked them up and then you got like right in their face, like instantly. Like, what are they gonna do? They're gonna back up. And so that's what you wanna do, is that you wanna present opportunities. You don't wanna chase people because you come across desperate and needy, and nobody is gonna want to invest with somebody who is desperate and needy. The fifth way to fund and finance a storage deal, and I don't wanna pretend like there's only 5 ways to do it, but these are probably the most common, is what's called a master lease option. I actually have a coaching client that did this. The seller wasn't interested in selling at that moment, but they knew they wanted to sell, and he was able to negotiate a predetermined price, was able to essentially take over the operations of that storage business. As the buyer, he has all the flexibility. He has the option to buy that storage facility at a predetermined price in the future, and that's all pre-negotiated and it's in paperwork, but he does not have the obligation to buy that storage facility. Now, conversely, when an owner signs an agreement on an MLO, a master lease option, that is what's going on with your friends, and it's the same exact thing that goes on with aspiring self-storage investors. That seller has the responsibility and the obligation to sell that storage facility or that piece of real estate, but the buyer is the one that has more of the flexibility. Oftentimes, something called an option consideration fee. My coaching client did put down a very small option consideration fee, and that gets credited to the predetermined purchase price. Now, look, here's a disclaimer. I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm not giving you legal advice. Consult with the pros. In fact, I should probably tell you that you're never going to make any money with self-storage, and this is all for like educational purposes. I'm just sharing with you experiences that I've had, experiences that those in our Storage Wins coaching community have had. If you are worried about getting the money and how are you going to fund and finance the purchase of your first storage facility, hopefully this gives you some confidence that there are numerous ways you can get these deals funded and financed. I don't care if you have bad credit. I don't care if you have no money. Go out and get really, really good at acquisitions. Get really good at finding these deals and come to me or somebody inside the Storage Wins community. I can tell you with certainty there's no shortage of an appetite for people that are wanting to get involved in the right deals.